And back with the latest tracking as far as US now cornering China is concerned, because after the government of India banned 59 Chinese apps, including hugely popular TikTok across the country, the United States of America has now designated Chinese telecom companies Huawei and ZTE as national security threats. Now, FCC Chairman Ajit Pai has also issued a statement and has said that they cannot and will not allow the Chinese Communist Party to exploit network vulnerabilities and compromise on the country's critical communications infrastructure. That is the latest statement that has come in from the FCC, wherein it has said that the equipment of tech giants like Huawei and ZTE are a threat to US networks, threat to US communication networks, also to supply chains, that there should be a blanket ban, the only viable protection. Also, how unacceptable risk to national security that can be witnessed as far as these telecom giants are concerned. So, US certainly cornering China, but also a big question now on what India's next big step is going to be. And to talk about it in detail, our senior news editor Shravan Sen joining us. Shravan, if you could just elaborate more on what exactly has been said by the United States, because there are several intelligence laws also that have now come under scrutiny, and that is exactly why US has now cited security reasons for banning these kind of telecom giants.
Well, in fact, this decision was actually taken by the Federal Communications Commission on 30th of June, where they've essentially designated these two telecom giants, Huawei and ZTE, as national security threats. It also goes on to indicate that the fund, which is basically designated by the FCC, which is roughly about $8.3 billion a year for the Universal Service Fund, they would not be in a position to buy or maintain, improve, modify, or any equipment or services that have been produced by these suppliers. Now, if you simply go by the order that was basically passed by the FCC, they're basically saying that there is an overwhelming weight of evidence that these two telecom giants are basically a national security risk to America's communication networks. And not just that, it doesn't end there. They go on to say that both the companies have close ties to the Chinese Communist Party and the China's military apparatus, and both companies are broadly subject to Chinese law, obligating them to cooperate with the country's intelligence services. And the Bureau took into account the findings and actions of the Congress, the executive branch, the intelligence community, and basically they come to the conclusion that they will not allow the Chinese Communist Party to exploit the network vulnerabilities and compromise critical communication infrastructure in the United States of America. Remember, this has been a concern.
All right. I'll come back to you, Shravan, but we have Saurabh Shukla also joining us on the phone line. Saurabh, a big decision that has now been taken by the United States, though this controversy was sparked off 2 years back, but now since China is being cornered more and more, not just by United States, also India, after having banned 59 of those Chinese apps, what do you think is the way forward, and how do you really assess this particular move that has now been taken by the United States?
You know, I can tell you, as I've been saying on your shows for the last several days, that this is just the beginning of a sustained pressure on China by democracies which have been the victim of the Chinese espionage, victims of Chinese companies passing on these data of millions of users to their parent company in China, and these companies have a direct ties to the Chinese Communist Party. So that's the reason why these actions are being taken. Obviously, U.S. agencies have been investigating these companies for a long time. India's security agencies have had a concern on ZTE and Huawei. And if you see logical, in fact, the banning of these apps wasn't done overnight. There was a sustained audit, a security audit that was carried out by India's Ministry of Home Affairs that found that obviously there were certain security loopholes which violated national security norms for India. And I think it's time that countries across the globe which have been, which have seen Chinese bullying in be it a diplomatic, format, be it on the military format, need to join hands and to say that they will set global standards so these companies don't steal people's data and don't violate privacy concerns, because all these companies have been also working in telecom infrastructure, which is even more scary because, you don't know where your data is going, because obviously these Chinese companies, and I would go a step further, saying that there should be a clearer scrutiny even of the companies which are heavily Chinese funded. Because obviously once you have the influence factor coming in, then you don't know in which way the data of millions of users is being used. So this is something the government must take cognizance of. And also we should keep sustained pressure on China, both strategically, both economically, and also militarily as well. Because that's a way to deal with them, because they have been indulging in their bullying tactics, bullying democracy at a juncture when China-induced coronavirus is, creating havoc in the form of a pandemic.
Absolutely. Thanks, Saurabh Shukla, for that perspective. Quickly taking a